Part 25. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, Mo. Chapter 241. At the moment when Muqiu drew out the great sword of the void. In an instant, a blue beam of light wrapped in black flames rose into the sky, dispelling the haze that shrouded the Jade Sea base. There are faint chanting Sanskrit sounds echoing between heaven and earth, as if they are welcoming the arrival of a supreme lord. At this moment, under the gaze of countless people, the sky was broken. On a hillside far away from the Jade Sea base, a pink-haired girl wearing a long skirt hugged a doll and stared at the light beam in the center of the Jade Sea. There are countless pink monster butterflies flying around. A white hole suddenly flashed across Chi-Chi's chest, and wisps of void power transformed from his chest into pieces and dissipated into the air. The awakening of the power of the king will allow you to completely control the power of the void in your body. Reaching the pinnacle of void power in the realm of blasphemy. Chi-Chi's eyes were deep and her lips parted slightly. You will become the true king. Then, that's Ice Lord. The humans scattered in every corner of the base all looked up at the soaring light beam that penetrated the entire Jade Sea. Their eyes were like torches and their expressions were horrified. In front of the boundless sea of fire, a figure wearing a robe of flowing fire ink holds a giant blade in the void, like a king coming to the world. Black shadow monsters with scarlet eyes emerged from under him, with astonishing power. Immediately afterwards, black figures appeared in the dark places of the entire city. From a distance, their numbers were comparable to the zombie army. Eternal Night Dynasty. While everyone below was shocked and speechless, some sensitive people had already grasped the key points of Muqiu's words. Xiao Hanyan stared at Muqiu in front of the sea of fire. The extremely powerful and destructive pressure made her feel extremely palpitated. Is this your true face? The firelight illuminated the cold cheeks of the Queen of the Jade Sea, but it was not clear what she was thinking. The overwhelming and powerful pressure is coming, and the first one to bear the brunt is Zilan's army. Asshole, what the hell is going on? Troublemakers appeared one after another. Zhongli had completely lost his previous interest. Feeling the strong pressure coming towards him, he opened his face and gave orders with a distorted face. Everyone, focus your fire on me and shoot him in seconds. After Zhongli let out a loud shout, the cannon barrels on hundreds of mechas opened wide. With a deafening bang, countless exploding missiles bombed towards Muqiu like a rain curtain. A ferocious smile appeared on Zhang Kai's face. No one can escape such dense continuous artillery fire. The exploding missile penetrated many obstacles and rushed towards his face with a powerful momentum, but Muqiu stood still and did not move. With fire flowing all over the place and a deep gaze in his eyes, Muqiu slowly pulled out the great void sword that was inserted into the ground. The giant blade of the void wrapped in billowing black flames stood in front of him. The next second, a deep dark red light appeared in Muqiu's eyes. Swinging the sword suddenly, thousands of white bolts with endless murderous intent spurted out from the sharp sword edge. In an instant, deep white marks appeared faintly in the space ahead. With just one blow, the space was torn apart. Immediately afterwards, the thousands of silver-white horses wrapped with black flames instantly bombarded countless oncoming cannonballs. Countless cannonballs were cut and penetrated the moment they came into contact with the silver-white steel, and the violent roar produced by the explosion was deafening. And after those groups of silver-white horses that looked like hacksaws tore through the cannon fire in the sky, their momentum remained unabated and charged straight at the mecha army in front. In an instant, hundreds of huge mechas were split into two by the silver-white armor that came from the sky, and exploded. The smoke from the explosion filled the entire street, but everyone stared unblinkingly at the deepest part of the fog. They were all deeply shocked by the scene before them. The smoke gradually faded away, and a figure in a black robe slowly walked from the depths of the thick fog, dragging a sword in the void. Deep ravines were cut into the ground by the blade of the giant sword, and the flames on it surged and rolled as if they were alive. At this moment, a gust of wind howled behind Mu. I saw a dark red steel armor that was several times larger than ordinary mechas and had arrived behind Mu at some point. Violent energy fluctuations condensed together instantly. A powerful light cannon containing destructive energy erupted from the chest of the dark red mecha. Die. Among the dawn bearers who had lost a mechanical arm, his open and straight eyes flashed with ferocious light, and he shouted sharply. Mu turned around and raised the giant void blade in his hand. Immediately, the blade stood up straight, and a huge pillar of black flame spurted out from the tip. In an instant, the crimson laser and the jet black fire pillar collided in the air. The destructive residual power generated by the bombardment alone destroyed the surrounding high-rise buildings, causing rubble to fly and flames to bloom. Mu turned her wrist, and the black flames on the giant sword suddenly erupted. In an instant, the black flame pillar overwhelmed the laser with a powerful momentum. All the crimson laser cannons were swallowed up by the billowing black flames. The black flames continued to move forward after swallowing the laser, and the scorching flames instantly engulfed the donor behind it. The already broken donor could no longer withstand the burning of the black flames, and John Kiley's shrill screams came from inside. After just a few breaths, this high-tech mecha created by the Zilan base was burned into a pile of dregs by the violent flames. The low roar of zombies was faintly heard at the end of the street. But these irrational monsters instinctively did not dare to approach the street where Mu was. In the distance, the remaining Zilan army saw that the Donner and John Kiley were both annihilated by the terrifying black flames, and they did not dare to move for a while. Amidba. Wu Fa stood in the air, looking at Mu's slender figure. It turns out that the donor is the most hidden person in the space, but I am too stupid to see through it. At this point, Wu Fa finally understood why the previous divinations failed to find out Mu's background. There is no doubt that Mu in front of him is a destructive existence like him. Wu Fa's closed eyes suddenly opened and looked directly at Mu's face. This time, he wanted to confirm the guess in his heart. Wu Fa put his hands together, and the golden and red lights turned into beams shining above his head. At the same time, the Vajra Buddha behind Wu Fa rose several times out of thin air, and the image became more solid. What's more terrifying is that as the two red and gold beams merged into the figure of the Vajra Buddha, the left half of the Buddha's body is still the Vajra angry Buddha wearing a cassock. The right half of his face faded away like sand, revealing a half-green face of an evil ghost with fangs. This is Wu Fa's true body, the two-faced Buddha and demon. As the figure of the Buddha and demon appeared, an extremely powerful pressure enveloped the lower body. The evil ghost roared, the golden Buddha chanted, and the golden light and fierce light radiated from the Buddha and demon's body, shocking the minds of everyone present. Facing the Buddha and demon statue that was almost as tall as a building, Mu stood still. Behind him, the black robe fluttered, the flowing fire scattered, and the airflow blew the broken hair on his forehead. I saw Mu's head lowered, his arm covered with hand armor raised in front of him, and he slowly snapped his fingers. Flame Demon. A thunderous roar accompanied by the sound of dragon roar came from behind Mu. What is that? Everyone immediately felt an extreme sense of oppression, and looked at the direction behind Mu in shock. In the sea of fire behind Mu, a terrifying monster with a body as big as a Buddha and a demon, dark red skin, two horns on its head, sharp teeth and claws, and a dragon head and a human body emerged from the fire. As this dragon-headed monster emerged from the endless sea of fire, Mu's figure turned into a stream of light and merged into the monster's body. In the air above the Yuhei base, Mu and Wu Fa's figures were facing each other, and the invisible pressure was almost suffocating. Behind them, the flame demon lord who came out of the fire confronted the two-faced Buddha and the light intertwined. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 242. The moment the Balrog appeared, all the zombie heretics in Yuhei base began to roar uncontrollably. Is this your last trump card? Under the huge shadow of the double-faced Buddha and demon, Wufa opened his eyes and looked at the fire demon lord coming from the fire in front of him, with a flash of surprise in his eyes. Even he felt quite afraid of such tyrannical and terrifying pressure. The black flames that burned everything wrapped around the body, and what faintly came from this huge dragon-headed monster was dragon power? Mu Chiu's figure in front of Yan Mo gradually dimmed and turned into a ball of black energy that merged into Yan Mo's body. At the same time, the Balrog roared, his eyes glowed red, and the sea of fire surged into the sky. The destructive power reached its peak in an instant. I saw the Balrog opening its bloody mouth, and a ball of crimson violent flames condensed between its fangs. The next moment, a pillar of hot flames spurted out from the mouth of the Balrog, penetrating the sky above the entire Jade Sea base like a solitary lamp. Looking at the bursting pillar of fire from far to near, Wufa's pupils trembled slightly. A round of golden light suddenly flashed in front of the double-faced Buddha and demon, turning into a light shield to block it in front of him. The crimson pillar of flames was wrapped with black flames and struck the light shield in front of the statue of Buddha and demon with rolling pressure. The moment the pillar of fire struck the golden wheel, it was like a meteorite setting into the sun. Crimson flames mixed with black heat waves all erupted on the light mask. Immediately afterwards, the diamond shield formed by the convergence of Buddha's light actually cracked under the impact of the fire pillar. Wufa's eyes were horrified. He never expected that the momentum of this flame would be so fierce. With a thought in his mind, the demon side of the double-faced Buddha and demon suddenly opened its mouth and roared. As a vicious roar came from the evil ghost side, a red light suddenly appeared in front of the Buddha and the demon. Immediately, the red light spread more and more, colliding with the black flame pillar in the air and cancelling it out. All humans or zombies affected by the red light will turn red, with bloodshot eyes, and launch hysterical desperate attacks towards their companions. The two-faced Buddha and the devil, the Lord Buddha benevolently protects, and the Lord the devil brutally kills. The eyes of the fire demon lord transformed by Mu Chiu were red, and his huge figure disappeared in an instant. The next second, the blood-soaked Balrog appeared in front of the virtual image of the double-faced Buddha and demon. Amitabha. After enlightening the Dharma and chanting the name of the Buddha, the phantom of the big Buddha above his head suddenly condensed a vajra in his hand. But the evil ghost on the right half is holding a cross steel fork that shines with blood, and it is all heading towards the huge body of the Balrog. At the same time, a faint light suddenly flashed past behind the virtual statue of Buddha and demon. Dark blue corpses emerged from the countless zombies in the base, and they all merged into this dim light. As the corpses all over the sky merged in, the dim light gradually grew larger, and instantly turned into a stream of light and penetrated into the body of the Balrog. Buddhas and demons kill their bodies, and their corpses swallow their souls. The two destruction-level beings launched a decisive attack on the Balrog that Mu Chiu had transformed into. The blue beam transformed into a boy inside Balrog's body. This is its usual method, to separate the living soul and corpse of the intruder, devour the living soul, and sacrifice the corpse. Knowing that the person he had to deal with this time was also a destructive level being, the blue soul directly condensed the corpses of the entire base. Let this soul body have nearly 50% of the strength of the original body. It is enough to deal with a destructive level existence known for its strength with only 50% of the soul body and the double-faced Buddha and demon inside and outside. However, this time, when the blue soul body penetrated the Balrog's body, it did not gnaw at his soul as usual. In the blink of an eye, a boy-like blue soul appeared in a dark red space. There was a sudden cry of blood in the sky. I saw a full sun appearing in the dark sky at some point, lighting up the entire space instantly. There is nothingness in the space, as if the world was first created. The blue soul body stared attentively, and then realized that there was a round sun shining in front of it. It was clearly a three-legged golden crow emitting sun flames. The next second, a giant hand rising up into the sky directly frightened the three-legged golden crow, emitting sun flames into the air. The blue soul body looked up, only to see an amethyst throne burning with black flames placed above the sky. Mu-Chiu, with a handsome face, crossed her legs and leaned on the throne, with the netherworld evil tiger crawling docilely under her. Suddenly, a powerful and domineering dragon roar came from beside Mu-Chiu. I saw a huge red dragon hovering over the throne. The moment the three-legged golden crow was captured, the giant dragon opened its mouth and roared, and directly swallowed the three-legged golden crow, which was burning with dazzling sun flames. Indescribable pressure rushed towards him, and the little boy transformed into a blue soul seemed so small in front of this supreme dragon power. At this moment, Mu-Chiu, who was sitting on the void throne, suddenly turned around and looked at the little boy, with an evil smile on his lips. "Are you scared?" The seemingly gentle words struck deep in the heart of Yalin's soul like a bolt from the blue. At this moment, its heart suddenly sank. However, due to this moment of fear, the soul power around Yalin's soul body was rapidly weakening. Soul fruit soul spell. The enemy's soul is judged by questioning. As long as the enemy has a trace of fear in his heart, his soul and life will be taken away instantly. What kind of power is this? The boy felt that the soul power condensed in his body was absorbed by the enemy at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his face was immediately horrified. Not only that, he also felt that something deep inside his body was also flowing away with these soul powers. That was the soul source representing his life. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 243. In the dark red space, a boy's childish scream was heard. The blue soul body in the boy's appearance felt the soul power in his body surging at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then all of these soul powers were absorbed by Mu-Chiu in the sky. What kind of power is this? The boy's body does not belong to the category of human beings, but at this moment, he can't help but feel a sense of fear. More importantly, the soul origin of his body is also disappearing with the loss of corpses. It suddenly raised its head and looked at the purple crystal throne at the edge of the sky. On the throne, a handsome man was wearing a black robe. Just as the little boy in the form of a ghost looked at Mu-Chiu in fear, he found that the latter was also turning his head to look at him. The corners of his mouth rose slightly, and the contemptuous smile in his eyes seemed to be looking at a tiny ant on the side of the road. For some reason, in the few seconds of staring at Mu-Chiu, the fear in the heart of Yalin's soul was actually magnified. In the space where no one could reach, a twisted scream of a dead soul came. And the battle between Buddha and demon in the outside world was still going on. When Wufa saw Yalin's soul transformed into a stream of light and invaded the body of Yan Mo, a touch of joy flashed in his eyes. The powerful destructive power of Yan Mo brought too much pressure to him. At this time, Wufa would not care about any fair duel. The corpse attacked the soul, the Buddha and demon attacked the body. Even the destructive strongman could not withstand the double pressure of the soul and the body. Wufa was seen muttering something, and beams of golden light spread from his body, all merging into the Buddha and demon phantom above his head. And the figure of the two-faced Buddha and demon also rose by a foot in an instant. The evil ghost showed his ferocious fangs, and the blood-red mottled steel fork in his hand was fierce. The huge body turned from defense to offense and pressed towards Yan Mo. The red color in the flame demon's eyes became more intense, and his whole body was wrapped in scorching flames. The next moment, the flame demon stretched out his hand to the boundless sea of fire beside him. The sea of fire surged like waves, and a ferocious sword with black flames all over its body was pulled out from the void. The black flame sword was more than 10 feet long, and there were silver-white threads wrapped around it. It was a replica of the void sword. The flame demon roared, held the black flame giant blade in his hand, and raised a raging flame wave, slashing at the Vajrabuddha demon in front of him. Different from Muchu's understated attack. The flame demon's attack was open and closed without any rules, but each attack had the power to shake the sky and split the earth. The flame demon's huge body was bathed in fire, holding the void giant blade in his hand, and slashed at the two-faced Buddha demon standing in the void with the momentum of opening the sky. In an instant, the air in which the two giants were located was broken into wide space cracks by the powerful force. Buildings within a radius of dozens of kilometers were completely destroyed by the raging flames and pressure. Whether it was human mechas or zombies, they were all swept into the dust and dregs, and no bones were left. The great battle between the two shocked the humans below. In a trance, they seemed to be in the ancient battlefield of the prehistoric times, and in front of them was a fierce battle between gods. What surprised everyone was that the body of the flame demon fought with the two-faced Buddha demon. Within a few rounds, the two-faced Buddha demon transformed by Wufa fell into a state of decline. In the fight with the flame demon, Wufa, who was sitting in the Buddha demon virtual image, became more and more palpitating. The invasion of the blue soul body against the flame demon seemed to have no effect at all. On the contrary, the attack of the flame demon became stronger and stronger, and the oppressive feeling it exuded shocked even Wufa, who was also at the destruction level. The strength of the supernatural power that Wufa displayed was related to the believers he inherited. When the believers had good intentions, the power of the incense of faith would strengthen the benevolent Buddha side. And if the believers had extremely evil thoughts, it would also encourage the evil ghost side. In the past few years, Wufa had developed thousands of believers with the help of John Kingwei. But even this golden body of faith of tens of thousands of people could not resist the flame demon giant in front of him. How could Wufa know that after experiencing this battle of redemption, Muchu had successively devoured the powerful physique of the Mangshan Qianhu, the poisonous power of the weird face poison moth, and the golden crow Yanjian of Wang Daipen, who was called Scorching Sun? The energy blessing of several destructive level beings, plus the soul fruit obtained by signing in. It can be said that Muchu has now reached an unprecedented peak in terms of physique, supernatural power, and soul. The flame demon swung the giant blade of the void wrapped in black flames in his hand and roared. Indistinctly, the swirling black flames turned into a giant dragon in the void. The black flame dragon swooped down towards the huge body of the Buddha demon with a monstrous momentum and fangs. Wufa was shocked and used the golden light to turn it into a light shield in front of the Buddha demon's virtual image to block it. But suddenly, a group of dark purple miasma emerged from the black flames. The dark purple miasma vaguely turned into a woman's resentful face, with a shrill cry, and sprayed on the golden light shield with the force of lightning. The annihilation poisonous miasma of the strange-faced poisonous moth that erodes all things. The moment the strange-faced poisonous miasma touched the golden light shield, this golden diamond shield shattered in the blink of an eye. For the first time, a look of fear appeared in Wufa's eyes. The diamond shield turned into starlight and disappeared in the sky, followed by a mighty black dragon. Roar! With a thundering dragon roar, the huge black flame dragon instantly bombarded the Vajrabuddha demon. I saw the black dragon piercing through the body of the Vajrabuddha and demon with unmatched power, and the powerful air wave that broke out was so overwhelming that people could not open their eyes. In an instant, fiery red cracks appeared on this giant statue of Buddha and demon that gathered countless wishes. A few seconds later, in the horrified eyes of all humans, the truth about the huge Buddha and demon entrenched above the jade sea base. Broken. Along with the virtual images of Buddha and demon disappeared in the sky. Wufa's chest within the golden light froze, and large amounts of blood suddenly spurted out from his mouth and nose. The double-faced Buddha and the demon were connected to his own life. The Buddha and the demon were destroyed, and he himself suffered irreparable damage. Wufa's short body fell to the ground, blood spurting out from his mouth. But in front of him, the huge body of Balrog was like a pillar of heaven. The body of the Balrog gradually enlarged in Wufa's eyes, and the latter subconsciously crawled back. The flames surged into the sky, but the body of the Balrog turned into billowing black flames and dissipated in the air. A man in a white shirt appeared in front of Wu Dharma holding a giant blade in the void. Wufa looked at the smiling man in front of him, but the shock in his eyes never faded. "You have no idea what this arrow means." Wufa seemed to remember something terrible, his body trembled, and Gu Jingmuobo's face was always frightened. It is impossible to imagine that a mortal body can fight against a power comparable to that of a god. Humans, small humans. Wufa looked stunned and suddenly started talking to himself crazily. When she heard Wu Dharma's ravings like a lunatic, Mu Qiu frowned slightly and walked forward slowly. He directly grasped the heavenly spirit above Wufa's head, and a powerful soul force was poured into him. Soul binding. There must be some bigger secret hidden within the heterogeneous religion. Enlightenment. As one of the 12 immortal priests in red robes, Mu Qiu believed that his soul memory must have the information he wanted to know. However, the moment Mu Qiu's thought power touched Enlightenment's soul, as if some switch had been triggered, the soul light group in Wufa's body began to expand rapidly. Mu Qiu's pupils shrank, and she withdrew her soul power in time. But the soul source of enlightenment exploded in an instant. The moment his soul exploded, Wufa was already bleeding from all his orifices, and his body exploded to death. At the transition between life and death, Wufa seemed to have really seen something. He pointed at Mu Qiu and said with a crazy face, You are not the son of Savior." However, the next second, before Wufa could finish his words, a ferocious sword edge struck across the sky. The devouring power was activated along with the black flames of karma, and a shriveled and broken corpse was thrown into the blazing fire. "Save your sister." Mu Qiu put away the giant sword with an expressionless expression. It was obvious that Enlightenment's soul had been tampered with. Mu Qiu could no longer get any information she wanted from him. This is almost coming to an end. Mu Qiu turned around and looked at the city in flames behind her. The surrounding buildings have been reduced to ruins by this seemingly ancient battle. "Let's clean up the remaining trash fish first." Mu Qiu clapped her hands, and countless black shadows emerged from the depths of the earth, moving in all directions of the base. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Sign in at the end of the world. Start by devouring the Flame Demon Lord. Author, MOCNU. Chapter 244. Is it almost the same over there? Mu Qiu seemed to feel something and turned around slowly. A black hole as dark as ink suddenly appeared in front of him. This is the passage between the Shadow Kingdom and the real world. It is also through this passage and the connection with Lin Feng, who has the blood of the fire demon. It took Mu Qiu to travel thousands of kilometers back to the Yuhei base. On the mountain road thousands of kilometers away from Yuhei base, dozens of broken mechas were running away at high speed. There were dozens of figures of men in black robes flying in the sky. Damn it, where did those shadow monsters come from? They were the Zilan troops and the Yaiwan cultists who were encircling and suppressing the Yuhei reinforcements at the Dongshan ruins. After Mu Kyojian killed the Golden Crow transformed by Wang Daipen, they were already terrified and terrified. However, Mu Qiu ignored the remaining foreign cult and Zilan army, and instead stepped into a black hole and disappeared without a trace. Tianlai Novel Network. Before they could rejoice, countless black shadow monsters with red eyes suddenly appeared from the shadows underground and launched a fierce attack on them. Hundreds of mechas were hunted down by the shadow monsters, leaving only a few dozen broken ones. Now they are still being hunted by those monsters. The situation has changed. We can no longer contact the team at Yuhei base. Please inform the base and we will withdraw first. At least we haven't gained anything here. As a voice sounded, the storage hatch in the belly of a mecha opened, and an old-looking figure in white lay inside. The base must be very interested in studying the white god of death who possesses the power of space. But before he could finish his words, a slender figure appeared in front of the many mechas. The mecha army was immediately filled with dead souls. Why did this god of plague come back again? I almost forgot that there are still some cannon fodder that I haven't dealt with. Miuchiu raised her head and looked at the mecha army in front of her, with a trembling smile on her lips. Immediately afterwards, overwhelming black shadow monsters emerged from all directions, instantly surrounding and devouring the remaining dozens of mechas and alien cultists. Hearing the shrill screams of humans, Ji Yufeng slowly raised his heavy eyelids. "It's really embarrassing, Your Majesty the God of Death." A familiar voice came, and Miuchiu was seen floating in the sky, looking at the old-looking Ji Yufeng from a bird's eye view. This is the price paid for forcibly driving the power of space. Ji Yufeng opened his eyes with difficulty. Now it was extremely difficult for him to move. He is going to die. Miuchiu looked at Ji Yufeng, who was almost as angry as a gossamer, and raised the corners of his mouth. There is no doubt that Ji Yufeng is an excellent sword, and he can complete any task at any cost. It is precisely because of this that he can become the captain of the law enforcement team with more authority than Wei Ying, the white god of death that everyone in Yuhei base fears. Miuchiu is not lacking in the ability to move in space now. He once devoured space enchantments, and when the chicken and rabbit talisman was used to its extreme, he could travel through time and space. He even had a space passage to the Shadow Kingdom. But now, Miuchiu still lacks a sharp blade that can take action on his behalf and is more flexible than the Black Shadow Core. Miuchiu spread his right hand, and a white soul beam shone with dazzling light. This is obtained by absorbing the blue soul body and represents the soul origin of life. This is his ability after developing the soul fruit to the extreme, life-giving. He can add the collected life essence to others at will. Similarly, he can also withdraw the life energy given to others at will. The ability to easily influence the lifespan of others. If such a heaven-defying skill were to spread, I don't know how many human beings who are approaching their lifespan would flock to them and bow their heads. Just to extend a little life left. In Miuchiu's eyes, the term lifespan is really dull. After all, in a sense, Miuchiu's lifespan with the dog charm is equivalent to immortality. You have two choices now, surrender, or die. Miuchiu's calm words reached Ji Yufeng's ears, and they were categorical, as if they were a message from the King of Hell. Ji Yufeng's dry lips opened and closed slightly, but now he was unable to say anything else. In the white beam of light in Miuchiu's hand, he felt the rich life energy. On his deathbed, Ji Yufeng remembered what Miuchiu once said. Only the strong can measure the laws of the world. The law of the world? Ji Yufeng trembled and stretched out his arms towards the beam of light. He knew that from this moment on, he would sign a contract and become the other party's most loyal servant until the end of his life. Looking at Ji Yufeng, who gradually stretched out his arms, Miuchiu nodded without surprise. Then what happens next? Miuchiu looked into the distance and said in a teasing tone, "It's time to go back and inherit my throne. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the Flame Demon Lord." Author, MOCNU. Chapter 245. Fire filled the air, and the previous battle had completely destroyed the streets of Yuhei Central. Everyone could only vaguely see the two-horned flame demon monster above the city holding a giant blade and slashing out a black flame dragon hovering over the city. The black flame dragon shattered the sky holding Buddha and demon with unmatched power, and soon the entire central street was a spreading sea of fire. Then countless shadow monsters emerged from the depths of the ground, as if swearing their sovereignty over the city. In the anxious gaze of everyone, a slender figure wearing a white shirt slowly stepped out of the boundless sea of fire. The boundless sea of fire behind him seemed like a ferocious beast that chose to devour people, opening its most ferocious fangs towards the world. The scorching fire was like a docile pet wrapped around Mewtwo's white shirt. At first glance, it looked like a dark red swimming dragon. Everyone stared dumbly at Mewtwo, who walked out of the sea of fire. There were expressions of fear, shock, confusion, and horror. All kinds of restless and anxious emotions appeared on the faces of these people. When Mewtwo came with supreme power like a king, their minds were already severely shaken. To this day, this horrified mood still lingers in their hearts for a long time. Mewtwo. Wei Ling, who was covered in scars, leaned against the corner, looking up at the familiar figure walking out of the sea of fire, her eyes twinkling. Even she did not expect that the survivors brought back from the ruins of the corpses would be so powerful. So powerful that it can subvert the entire Yuhei base. As Mewtwo moved, black monsters appeared in the shadows beside him. These shadow monsters all lowered their heads and bowed slightly in the direction of Mewtwo, as if welcoming their supreme lord. Mewtwo slowly walked up to the disintegrating Jade Sea army, and a figure wearing a white military uniform stood in front of him. At this moment, Xiao Hanyan still maintained her mermaid form, but she was lying on the ground with an abdominal injury. She had already lost her strength after experiencing successive battles. Xiao Hanyan looked at Mewtwo with a pale face, the corners of his lips slightly parted but unable to speak. Mewtwo slightly raised Xiao Hanyan's snow-white chin and chuckled. An exchange of equal value is fair, isn't it? My queen. As soon as he finished speaking, Mewtwo slowly turned around and walked towards the sea of fire ahead. Everyone present held their breath and stared at this figure that shocked them extremely. Suddenly, a purple-robed figure emerged from the collapsed ruins nearby. As soon as it appeared, it rushed towards Mewtwo's back like lightning. A strange dagger in his hand shone with an eerie cold light. Go to hell. A haggard and twisted face was reflected under the sharp blade. It's actually Feng Jun, the purple-robed messenger of the heterogeneous religion. Feng Jun's face was ferocious, and he exhausted all his strength just for this one-shot move. This Feng Jun turned out to be a speed-type awakener. He was so fast that no one could react. The dagger flashing with cold light was already less than 3 feet away from Mewtwo. At this moment, everyone's heart seemed to slow down. But Mewtwo didn't notice it at all, and still walked towards the sea of fire ahead unhurriedly. The next moment, a white space wave suddenly appeared behind Mewtwo. There was a click sound, and a white figure appeared behind Mewtwo. A beam of laser shot through the air and blocked Feng Jun's assassination dagger. I saw the person wearing a white suit, with gray hair, a pair of black-rimmed glasses, and a cold temperament. This is... Seeing this familiar figure, everyone in Yuhei was dumbfounded and surprised. Appearing in front of everyone, the person who blocked the assassination for Mewtwo turned out to be the captain of Yuhei's law enforcement team, the White God of Death Ji Yufeng. Ji Yufeng's figure shook, and the next second he appeared in front of Feng Jun. The transparent space blade slashed across the sky, scarlet blood sprayed into the sky, and a head full of horror fell to the ground. The whole process only took a few breaths, but it took a long time for everyone to recover. After Ji Yufeng beheaded Feng Jun, his face was as cold as ice, and his figure flashed to Mewtwo's side. Immediately afterwards, this White God of Death, who shocked the Jade Sea and made countless awakened people tremble with fear. He actually knelt down on one knee towards Mewtwo's back in front of everyone in a surrendering gesture. Countless shadow monsters all around surrounded Mewtwo's figure and knelt down, like a pilgrim. As Mewtwo stepped lightly, a long road of flames paved out beneath her feet, and the shadow of a rising dragon vaguely hovered in the endless sea of fire in front of her. Gradually, the black flames condensed into an amethyst throne with rising flames, supreme and powerful. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Mewtwo slowly sat down on the amethyst throne. Mewtwo, who was sitting on the throne, looked calm and handsome, like a living god. Immediately afterwards, A clear and majestic voice sounded clearly in the ears of all humans in Yuhei base. From now on, the Yanjai dynasty will completely replace the Yuhei base, and you are all the people of Yanjai. Eternal night is coming. The sky above Yuhei base seemed to be shrouded in a bloody dark night. From this moment on, the Eternal Night dynasty finally showed its fangs to the world. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 246. In a quiet space, a 12-disc white magic circle stood quietly. There is no trace of life in the deep and silent space. It is like a junction where time and space are stagnant, and it is dark and boundless. Suddenly, it seemed as if a wisp of breeze blew by, bringing a touch of life to this space. The white magic circle in the center of the space started to move quickly. Groups of crimson soul fires suddenly erupted from all corners of the disk, but only one corner in the southwest remained dim. One of the soul fires rippled, and a voice suddenly came from the silent space. The bad luck card is broken. That useless coward, I should have known he would never achieve anything great. Who did it? Who is so bold and dares to challenge the authority of my holy religion? 11 groups of crimson soul fires flashed each other, and vague sounds came from them. The soul fire that spoke first flashed. The other party calls itself the Eternal Night Dynasty. You are really brave to dare to use the dynasty as your nickname. Eternal Night Dynasty? I seem to have heard of this organization somewhere. The soul fire in front said again. Now, including the Yuhei base that is responsible for the evil, nearly half of the Dongxiao region is controlled by the Yanjai dynasty. Also, the fire source cultivated in Yuhei base has gone out. What? As soon as these words came out, the entire disk array suddenly became boiling. Seeing his posture was even more shocking than hearing about his death. Damn it! If you dare to harm the important affairs of our holy religion, you should be punished. It is not easy even for the holy cult to cultivate another destructive fire source in a short period of time. That good-for-nothing loser actually lost the most critical key. How strong is this Eternal Night Dynasty? A voice asked suddenly. The strength of Zuoei is not weak among the 12 of them. Since the other party can solve it together with the destructive level fire source, its strength must not be underestimated. It can be determined that the leader of this organization is a destruction level existence. But so far, the full strength has not been revealed. The specific strength of other members also needs to be studied. Send someone to find out the details of this force. Any heresy that may affect the progress of my holy religion must be eradicated. Within a few days after the Jade Sea War ended, the Yanjai dynasty did not deliberately conceal it. This emerging force that replaced Yuhei base quickly spread to the top brass of all major human bases. No one knows when this Evernight organization emerged, and no one knows how powerful this force is. But the only thing that is certain is that the original Yuhei base and several surrounding ruins have all turned into the territory of the Yanjai dynasty. This is the first time that the ferocious beast named Eternal Night shows its fangs to the world. A human base thousands of miles away in the Jade Sea. Miss, I've asked you to eat. There was a soft knock on the door of the luxurious bedroom. On the large bed, a woman wearing a white nightgown sat cross-legged, and her whole body was filled with energy fluctuations. A breeze suddenly rippled through the room. A dark green jade pendant on the woman's neck shone faintly. As the dim light gradually dimmed, the energy fluctuations emanating from the woman's body also subsided. Yefenyan slowly opened his eyes and said calmly, "I understand, Uncle Fu." Opening his palms, there was a faint whirlpool tornado hovering in his palms. This body, isn't it true that it still doesn't work? There is a secret hidden in Yefenyan's heart. Her soul came from another world on the verge of destruction. The original owner of this body was besieged by zombies for trespassing in the ruins a few days ago, and was already dying when he was rescued. From this, Yefanyan was able to take advantage of the opportunity to enter the dove's nest and occupy the dying body of her namesake. Yefanyan stood up and looked at the mirror beside the bed. In the mirror was a picture with rather delicate facial features, fair skin, and a beautiful face. But her originally beautiful appearance was ruined by a hideous scar extending from the corner of her eye to her chin. Yefanyan touched this ugly scar, which was caused by the original owner during his escape at the beginning of the apocalypse. After changing clothes, Yefanyan opened the door and walked slowly to the banquet hall on the ground floor of the villa. There was only a middle-aged man in a suit sitting in the empty banquet hall. Yefanyan knew that this was his father in this body. The middle-aged man was holding a book and studying it. When he saw Yefanyan's figure, he nodded slightly and motioned for him to sit down. Yefanyan found a seat next to the middle-aged man and sat down, and then heard the middle-aged man slowly say, "Fanyan, how's your cultivation going?" Yefanyan nodded, "My body has almost recovered. The middle-aged man said seriously, "Don't be brave. Even if those people outside look down on you, it doesn't matter. After all, you are my Yejing's daughter. Besides, you are a rare elemental awakener. I don't believe that with piles of resources stacked on top of you, you still can't advance." Yefanyan couldn't help but smile. Her father in this body was one of the leaders of this human base. The original owner of this body was extremely talented, but as a rare elemental awakener, he was unable to advance due to physical reasons. In the first few years of the apocalypse, her strength was still stagnant at the D-level stage, which was not much different from that of ordinary people. There was an elemental awakener in her family, but unfortunately he was a loser, so Yejing, the person in charge of the base, was often ridiculed. What's even more tragic is that this young lady actually fell in love with the son of the leader of another major force in the base. After being rejected for her ugly appearance, she was heartbroken and ran to the ruins of the city full of zombies to die. This gave her the opportunity to take advantage of the situation and occupy this broken body. While Yefanyan was in a daze, Yejing thought that his daughter had thought of the man she had been thinking about day and night, and said indignantly, "What good is that bastard boy besides his appearance, that is worth your concern? When your level is raised, there will naturally be a lot of good men waiting for you." Yefanyan said in a dry tone, "Dad, don't worry, I don't have any thoughts about him anymore. Besides..." Yefanyan quietly grasped the jade pendant around her neck. She didn't tell Yejing that after she recovered in the past few days, she clearly felt that the long stagnant energy in her body had fluctuated again. Yejing looked at Yefanyan and saw that she was obviously different from the past, and thought that his daughter had suddenly become enlightened after the big change. He felt relieved and comforted her. "Don't blame Dad for being so strict with you. In this end times where people eat each other, there is no guarantee that something unexpected will happen. Not long ago, Dad received intelligence that the Yuhei base in the Far East was occupied by a new force and renamed the Eternal Night Dynasty. You said that such a big force disappeared just like that. Dad is also worried about our future." Yefanyan had planned to muddle through after hearing her father's nagging. But when she heard the name Eternal Night Dynasty from Yejing's mouth, her face was immediately shocked and the chopsticks in her hand fell to the ground instantly. "Dad, what do you think the name of that organization is?" "Eternal Night Dynasty, what's wrong?" Yefanyan could no longer hide the fear in her eyes and looked dazed. The world she originally lived in was on the verge of collapse, with thousands of races standing side by side and heroes competing for supremacy. And above these thousands of races, they were all ruled by an extremely large organization. And that powerful force that dominated the world and was so huge that it made the world tremble was called Eternal Night Dynasty. Above a city occupied by zombies, thunder and lightning roared. Heavy footsteps sounded in the charred ruins. A tall giant with lightning wrapped around his body walked through the streets of the city. Zombies rushed out of the darkness from time to time. The lightning giant was not afraid at all, and grabbed the zombie with his big hand. Thunder and lightning swirled around his arm, driving the thunder and lightning, and a large piece of white lightning spewed out. In an instant, a huge zombie that looked like a meat mountain had been electrocuted into a charred corpse. The lightning giant threw the charred corpse aside and said in a cold voice, "Eternal Night Dynasty. What a big tone." In an instant, the whole sky was covered with lightning like a spider web. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 247. After the attack by the Zilan army a week ago, the territory of the original Yuhei base was in ruins. The walls collapsed, the roads fell, and the houses in the border area were destroyed. The most tragic destruction was still the block in the central ring area of the base. A shocking battle between Buddha and demon caused countless buildings around to be annihilated into dust, and the deep ground could not be leveled for a long time. The surrounding area of several kilometers seemed to have become a Jedi on Earth. All kinds of natural disaster-like scenes made people marvel at the horror of the destructive level strong. Ka-ka. The sound of wooden boards knocking and bricks and tiles inlaying rang out on the streets of various parts of the base. I saw that the houses and buildings everywhere were hung with escalators for decoration. On the escalators, many men and women dressed as workers wore safety helmets, holding hammers, wooden shovels and other tools, and repaired the houses destroyed in the war. These people are basically survivors of the original Yuhei base, acting as construction workers here. This job has both advantages and disadvantages for them. The upside is that this mission can provide compensation for the survivors who have no means of living in many bases. The survivors can exchange some food for full stomachs by repairing the house. The downside is that what they are repairing may be their own house. A renovation worker wearing a safety helmet is working at high altitude, holding the escalator with both hands. When he habitually turned his head to wipe the sweat on his forehead, a dark shadow suddenly flashed in his eyes. The man was frightened and almost fell off the ladder. When he came to his senses, he saw a black-clothed ninja wrapped in black clothes and with red eyes next to him. But he saw that the black-clothed ninja was also holding a hammer and repairing the roof. The companion on the other side curled his lips, as if he was laughing at the man's lack of knowledge. At this time, the black-clothed ninja noticed the sight of the two people, and his scarlet eyes slowly turned towards the two people. The man's companion shuddered instantly, with a flattering smile on his face, and waved to the black-clad ninja to greet him. Such examples are everywhere in the Yuhei base now. Looking around, the entire base is already a mixture of humans and black shadow monsters. The black shadow monsters look strange and varied, some are black-clad ninjas in human form, some are animals, and some look like giant insects. If others come here, they will think they have traveled to a different world where humans and monsters live together. The song girl has appeared. Hurry up. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted. Then, the humans on the whole street were boiling. Everyone put down their tools and rushed in one direction from all over the street. In an instant, people were rubbing shoulders with each other and crowded. Everyone rushed to a bus stop somewhere on the street. In front of the tall buildings on all four sides of the street, there is a curtain hanging horizontally, and many people are looking forward to it under the curtain. In the curtain, a pink-haired girl in a white dress sits quietly in front of the camera, wearing a red hairpin and holding a doll, looking as delicate as an angel. The girl in the camera opens her cherry lips slightly, and her extremely sweet singing voice resounds over the entire city. Flowers in bloom. Please tell me. Why do people hurt each other? There are constant disputes. Flowers blooming majestically. What can I see from you? The soft and beautiful voice reaches everyone's ears, and the heavenly singing voice accompanied by the beautiful melody is intoxicating. Everyone's face shows an extremely empty expression. Some people recalled the happy times in the past, while others recalled the voices and smiles of their families, and were intoxicated by the sweet songs. Many young people looked up at the beautiful pink-haired girl on the screen, with admiration in their eyes. This moving song has been the source of healing for them for many days. And the girl in the picture is the end of the world singer who is regarded as an idol by countless people. Ichi. In an office in a tall building in the center of the city. Miu sat at the table in a white shirt, stirring a cup of coffee in his hand, listening to the moving melody in his ears. The most essential feature of music is that it can reach people's hearts. Miu took a sip of coffee, feeling like a workplace elite. There was a sudden knock on the door. Miu narrowed his eyes slightly, and an inexplicable smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Come in." The door of the office, which was as empty as a hall, opened, and a slender figure walked out of the door. The person who came had a cold face, and wore a close-fitting white shirt with the fullness of her chest ready to burst out. She wore a black hip skirt, and a pair of flesh-colored stockings under the skirt revealed the woman's slender and sexy long legs, and a pair of black high heels on her feet. The cold and beautiful appearance and the seductive figure formed a very tempting contrast. The person who came was the former owner of this office, the leader of the Yuhei base known as the Iceberg Beauty, Xiao Hanyan. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MOCNU. Chapter 248. Xiao Hanyan walked up to Miu from the door, her plump figure was visible, she looked at the man in front of her. "Is this also your bad taste?" Miu looked at her without avoiding it. He glanced at Xiao Hanyan, who was dressed in a secretary outfit, unscrupulously. Her cold and beautiful appearance and proud figure gave people an extreme temptation. Miu smiled and said, "I think this outfit suits you very well." Xiao Hanyan did not continue to discuss this issue, but turned to say, "What kind of power did you bless me?" When Xiao Hanyan thought of the dark energy that Miu injected into her body, she couldn't help but feel her scalp tingling. It was as if she was cursed by a strange curse. Whenever Xiao Hanyan tried to use her superpowers, her body began to limp involuntarily, her whole body was weak, and her limbs were sore. She didn't dare to get close to the sea or rivers after awakening her mermaid superpowers. Miu stood up, lifted up Xiao Hanyan's snow-white chin, and whispered in her ear, "It's just a little trick. After all, I don't want such a competent housekeeper to run away." When it comes to management, Xiao Hanyan is indeed a rare talent. The man's hot breath came to her ears, and Xiao Hanyan's frosty cheeks rarely showed a bright red. "What is your purpose?" Xiao Hanyan is a strong woman, which can be seen from the fact that she, as a woman, established rules and led the entire human base. But even a strong woman like Xiao Hanyan could not figure out the real plot of the man in front of her. Powerful, yet mysterious. Hearing Xiao Hanyan's question, Miu turned around and looked down at the entire city through the glass window, narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Maybe it's just a whim, but what I want to build is not just a human base. After all, in today's world, humans will never be the only rulers, right?" Miu said a few vague words, but Xiao Hanyan fell into deep thought. Miu smiled slightly, turned and sat cross-legged on the chair, tapping the table with his fingers rhythmically. "The question session ends here, and it's almost time to get to the point." Xiao Hanyan raised her eyes and looked at Miu, and after a while she spoke. "The Guardian Eagle has now led a team to Lannan City, preparing to recover several surrounding cities. It is reported that the Zilan base has taken the lead in occupying several cities near its periphery that were cleared in the Redemption War." As he spoke, Xiao Hanyan handed an electronic map in his hand to Miu, which depicted the ruins of the city occupied by the Zilan base. Miu fiddled with the chessboard on the table. "Oh, they really picked up a good leak. The Yuhei base contributed the most in the Redemption War. the Zilan side not only did not contribute much, but also secretly backstabbed and intended to annex Yuhe. Now that the plan has failed, it has openly taken over several ruins around it after clearing them. Even Mu Qiu had to admire his thick skin. Xiao Hanyan then explained several matters of the base, big and small, which Mu Qiu didn't care about, so he simply left them to Xiao Hanyan to handle. Also, Su Wen left the base alone yesterday and went to the ruins. I heard from the guards guarding the city that she was granted your order to go out for training. Now that Mu Qiu is the lord of a city, the status of his disciples has naturally risen and they are valued. Mu Qiu nodded slowly. Both parents died in that war, and it was a big blow to Su Wen. This kind of pain can only be relieved by herself. Like Lin Feng, Mu Qiu will not influence their choices. Only after experiencing the physical and mental training can a true strong man be created. Xiao Hanyan looked at Mu Qiu and continued. So far, the guards have not been able to find Shueqinya's trace in the base. Some awakened people said that they saw a large area of black evil spirit emerging in the sky above the suburbs at the foot of the mountain during the last battle. Since that battle, Shueqinya disappeared without a trace, and no one saw her alive or dead. Mu Qiu closed his eyes and slowly said, "She is still alive." Through the trace of devouring breath attached to the ring given to Shueqinya, he could vaguely feel that there was indeed a familiar breath in the direction of the extreme west of Yuhe. But he didn't know whether it was too far away or blocked by some unknown force. He could not sense Shueqinya's specific location. www. Recalling the several cities annexed by the Zilan base, combined with the sign-in locations released by the system. Adding up the old and new accounts, Mu Qiu laughed and said, "It seems that I really need to go to Zilan base in person in the near future. Since Zilan base's appetite is so ugly, I want to see if its appetite is really that big." Mu Qiu looked down at the electronic map on the table. The mountains marked on it spanned thousands of kilometers, and the paths were winding and connected in all directions. Mu Qiu's mouth twitched slightly, and he turned to look at Xiao Hanyan and said, "Who else in the base knows the specific coordinates of Zilan base?" Well, he would not admit that he was a road idiot who could not read the map. Xiao Hanyan heard this and looked at Mu Qiu with an increasingly strange expression. Zilan base is well guarded and has many unpredictable high-tech weapons. Do you really want to go there in person? Having just replaced Yuhe base, are you now eyeing Zilan base? Let me serve you. Just then, a charming voice suddenly came from outside the gate. The gate slowly opened, and a woman in a cheongsam twisted her charming body and walked towards the two of them. Lu Qianqian. Xiao Hanyan frowned slightly. After Mu Qiu became the lord of a city, Lu Qianqian suddenly appeared. She took care of all the affairs of Yuhe together with Xiao Hanyan, just like a caring secretary. Lu Qianqian walked up to Mu Qiu, opened her red lips and whispered, "I happen to be at Zilan base to perform a mission, maybe I can help you." Mu Qiu did not show any surprise at Lu Qianqian's sudden appearance, and nodded slowly. "In that case, you will lead the way to Zilan this time." "Okay." Lu Qianqian's watery eyes suddenly narrowed with a smile. Looking at Mu Qiu and Lu Qianqian with inexplicable smiles on their faces. Xiao Hanyan didn't know why, but she suddenly had a strange premonition in her heart that she didn't even believe herself. Zilan base is going to be in trouble. In the hospital in Yuhe Center, a girl with silver hair was lying on the bed, with all kinds of life-supporting instruments inserted all over her body. Mu Qiu slowly lowered his hand from the silver-haired girl's chest. There was still a part of the white light ball transformed from the origin of the soul in his hand. Mu Qiu looked at the silver-haired girl lying on the bed and fell into deep thought. There is no doubt that Miao Miao's talent is top-notch, as she can reach the level of destruction at such a young age. But corresponding to this, Miao Miao also paid a corresponding price for such a strong strength. According to Xiao Hanyan, Miao Miao was already suffering from a terminal illness before the end of the world, and was bedridden, and her body was extremely weak. After awakening her superpowers after the end of the world, Meow Meow became a being similar to an earthbound spirit. Her soul cannot leave a certain range where her body is, otherwise her soul will disappear and her body will dissipate. Although the six-winged angel she transformed into has a powerful ability to purify filth, but every large-scale consumption of energy will bring a great burden to her body. After injecting the soul origin representing lifespan, Meow Meow's consumption in the Battle of Redemption was alleviated to a certain extent. But this is ultimately a temporary solution, and every use of the six-winged angel's ability will bring greater losses to it. This is the price of angels protecting the world. Mewtwo slowly got up and walked slowly out of the ward. That. Just as Mewtwo was about to leave, he suddenly heard a burst of hurried footsteps. Mewtwo turned his head and found a short-haired woman with glasses running to him in a hurry. The short-haired woman in front of him was Ji Yufeng's sister. What's the matter? Ji seemed to have no confidence in front of Mewtwo, and kneaded the corner of her clothes and said, "I want to ask if you know where my brother is." After returning to Yuhei from the Dongshan ruins, Ji was naturally overjoyed to hear that Ji Yufeng was still alive. But since returning, Ji has never seen Ji Yufeng. Ji Yufeng. Mewtwo's mouth corners raised, as if he thought of something interesting, and smiled with a squinted eye. I gave him a special task. If he can complete it successfully, maybe he will become the real White Death God. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the Flame Demon Lord. Author, MOCNU. Chapter 249. In the dark red space, there is a deep silence. This is an absolute forbidden area for humans, an abyss that light can never penetrate, and it belongs entirely to darkness and night shadows. This is the kingdom of black shadows. On a dark red land, a fierce battle that no one knows about is erupting. In the deep and bottomless abyss, pairs of red eyes face each other. Gradually, black shadow monsters of different shapes, some as tall as beasts, and some as huge as giants, emerge from the underground abyss. In a dark red space, only a dark outline and a pair of scarlet eyes can be vaguely seen. Suddenly, ripples appeared in the space, and a white figure appeared in front of a group of black shadow monsters. In the oppressive dark kingdom, this white figure seemed so out of place. Opposite the black shadow monsters of various shapes, there was a group of black ninjas with uniform clothing styles. These ninjas had sharp heads, their hands had steel claws as sharp as blades, and even their feet were like cones. The black shadow core, the claw shadow core. The next moment, the white figure suddenly moved. Strong spatial fluctuations continued to burst out around the white figure. The sound of sonic booms was faintly heard in the silent black shadow space. And the white figure shuttled through the claw shadow core through the emerging space vortexes. And every time the white figure disappeared, a large number of claw shadow ninjas exploded out of thin air. Immediately afterwards, the black shadow monsters on the other side also launched the most violent attack on the claw shadow core. The black shadow monsters of various shapes and the claw shadow core with uniform clothing instantly fought fiercely together. There were no screams or wails, only the sound of blades colliding and explosions caused by fighting. Ji Yufeng, wearing a white suit, turned into a silver stream of light, shuttling through this battlefield without humans. In this dark kingdom of shadows, I don't know how much time has passed. This battle that belongs only to shadow creatures is finally coming to an end. Ji Yufeng stabbed the space blade into the ground and eliminated the last claw shadow ninja. The long battle caused his chest to rise and fall slightly. At this moment, a gloomy voice suddenly came from a distance. Najia's ghost shadow group. When did it become like this? Ji Yufeng slowly raised his head and saw a tall figure walking out of the abyss in front of him. His skin was dark purple, his appearance was tall and thin, his hands were sharp claws like sharp blades, and his head was an ugly and hideous demon mask. Claw Shadow Group Ghost General, Lazo. And behind this Ghost General, there were endless Claw Shadow ninjas emerging. Without any extra nonsense, Ji Yufeng gently supported the frame of his glasses. Pulling out the sharp blade in his hand, his figure shook and a strong spatial fluctuation burst out. In an instant, in the Dark Shadow Kingdom, another fierce battle broke out instantly. The human world, in the ruins of a city occupied by zombies. The yellow sand was all over the sky, the dust was flying, and the area in the center of the city seemed to be wrapped in layers of dense loess. It was hard to see what kind of dangerous existence was hidden in it. A heavy sound of footsteps sounded from the ground. I saw a tall figure in armor walking out of the yellow sand. The man was wearing bronze armor, his face was covered with cracked lines, and his skin was dull. Zhang Yuan stared at the ruins of the city in front of him for a long time without saying a word. Once, this was their home. Now with the end of the Redemption War, Mu Qiu sent Zhang Yuan to occupy the city again. However, this is far from over. Zhang Yuan took out a yellowed photo from his arms, which was a photo of two young men and women. In the photo, the beautiful woman smiled so happily. Yuner. Zhang Yuan carefully put the photo into his arms, and his somewhat turbid eyes instantly became firm. The bronze armor dragged the stiff body to move. And as Zhang Yuan moved, there were bursts of heavy footsteps behind him. The yellow sand swept past, and under the yellow sand, there were stiff bodies and wrinkled skin figures following Zhang Yuan and began to move. This belongs to the Eternal Night Dynasty, the zombie army. Hey, Lord Mu Qiu. On the empty plain, Lu Qianqian, wearing a Chong Sam, turned her head and looked at Mu Qiu beside her. Are you really planning to go to Zilan base alone? Mu Qiu turned around, looked at Lu Qianqian's slightly stiff face, and shook his head. No. Just when Lu Qianqian was about to let go of her uneasiness, she heard Mu Qiu smile and say, "Don't you have to lead the way?" Mu Qiu clearly observed that the face of this hot lady who was sought after by thousands of people in Yuhe suddenly turned red. Are you scared? Mu Qiu's teasing tone echoed in her ears, and Lu Qianqian shook her head decisively. How is it possible? A playful smile appeared on Mu Qiu's face. It is quite interesting to tease this charming little vixen. This time, he left Dire Nui in the Jade Sea. If there is any situation, he can return at any time through the Black Shadow channel reserved in the Jade Sea. In that case, let's go. Lu Qianqian was stunned again after hearing this. Go, how to go? Mu Qiu narrowed his eyes slightly, and a large ball of black fire suddenly burst out around his body. A terrifying breath came from the black flames, and Lu Qianqian immediately felt a chill on her back. Roar! Suddenly, a low tiger roar came from the rolling black flames. In an instant, the black flame vortex wrapped around Mu Qiu condensed into a huge giant tiger. The Nether Evil Tiger. The once destructive level Mangshan Qianhu was deprived of his mind by Mu Qiu, and his soul was restrained and suppressed, and his body was recast with the black flames of karma. Although the strength of the Nether Evil Tiger as a mount was greatly reduced, but the suffocating murderous aura that it once carried as a destructive beast that suppressed a region has never faded. Then, in Lu Qianqian's stunned eyes, Mu Qiu turned over and rode on the tiger's back. He took Lu Qianqian's jade hand and directly lifted her up. On the empty plain, a tiger with black flames burning all over its body rushed towards a distant place. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, Mo Xianyu. Chapter 250. Dusk is falling, but for the ruins of the city that has long since fallen into a zombie kingdom. The closer night gets, the more manic and active the man-eating monsters in these ruins become. Suddenly, there was a loud roar from the other side of the horizon. Immediately afterwards, there was a faint dark red flame rushing from a distance. From far to near, I realized what kind of flame it was. It was clearly a giant tiger with fangs whose whole body was burning with boiling black flames. Like an ancient ferocious beast, the netherworld evil tiger opened its fangs and galloped into the ruins of a city full of zombies. In an instant, it was like a tiger rushing into a flock of sheep, and countless zombies who came after hearing the news had not yet seen him. It was instantly burned into a piece of dregs by the boiling black flames on the netherworld evil tiger's body. Looking around, a black and red line of fire appeared out of thin air on the city streets. There is still a rising fire burning on it that has not been extinguished for a long time. The netherworld evil tiger galloped recklessly through the ruins filled with zombies. When he was about to approach the dangerous zone in the center of the city, the netherworld evil tiger's steps faltered, and the burning black flames on his body gradually faded away. A few seconds later, the netherworld evil tiger turned into a wisp of ghost and disappeared into this world again. Mewtwo jumped off the tiger's back and stretched slowly. Lu Qianqian, who was also carried along by the netherworld evil tiger, turned her dizzy head and felt that it was even more exciting than racing. Lu Qianqian looked at Mewtwo and said, "The most dangerous area in the city is ahead. I'll use illusion to cover it up before entering." Lu Qianqian knew that with Mewtwo's strength, she was not afraid of these high-level zombies, but after all, that was not the purpose of their trip. There are no absolutes, and it's always better to be cautious. No need to bother. Mewtwo spoke slowly, but she was already walking towards the human restricted area ahead. Lu Qianqian didn't know why, but she still followed Mewtwo into the city center ahead. As the two of them got closer, they could already vaguely hear the low roars of zombies coming from ahead. On the streets in the center of the city, zombie monsters covered in blood and in ragged clothes can be seen everywhere. They are the only hunters in the city. When they smell the breath of living people, these zombies instantly transform into the craziest beasts in the world, like hungry tigers pouncing on prey. Roar! The whole street of zombies boiled up in an instant, their mouths were salivating, their eyes were bloodshot, and they roared and rushed towards Mewtwo and the two of them. Lu Qianqian looked at Mewtwo, only to find that the master had closed his eyes at this moment. The group of corpses in front of them could not be seen at a glance, and they saw zombies all over the street rushing towards them. Just as the tide of corpses was getting closer and closer to them, Mewtwo suddenly opened her eyes. A blood-red color flashed across the deep pupils. A huge coercion that only the Corpse Clan can deeply feel spread out from Mewtwo's body. The pressure of the Corpse King. In an instant, the air seemed to be stagnant for a moment, and all the zombies rushing towards them were stagnant. The instinct in their blood makes these irrational monsters feel deep fear. Immediately afterwards, these high-level zombies wandering deep in the city turned around and ran away as if they had seen the most terrifying existence. Thousands of zombies turned around and fled in the other direction. In just a few seconds, all the zombies in the entire street fled, like a street empty of people. The seemingly funny scene made it difficult for Lu Qianqian to laugh out loud. Because at the moment when Mewtwo opened her eyes just now, at that moment, she felt horrified, as if she was being stared at by an ancient ferocious beast, and a chill ran down her spine. Only then did Lu Qianqian realize that until now, they didn't even know what this man's real power was. From the beginning he had ice powers, then he became a healing twin, and now he controls the ferocious black flames. As far as Lu Qianqian knows, Mewtwo is also very knowledgeable in the fields of soul and space. Looking at Lu Qianqian, who looked shocked, Mewtwo smiled and said, "Let's go." Only then did Lu Qianqian react and followed Mewtwo to the center of the city in front of her. Looking at the getting dark sky, Mewtwo looked for a large shopping mall located on the busiest street in the city. This kind of shopping mall located in the center of the city is usually a place where zombie heretics gather. Therefore, few humans choose to search for resources here. However, due to the coercion of Mu Chiu's corpse king, the zombies in the entire shopping mall had long since dissipated. Mu Chiu took Lu Qianqian to collect a circle of edible food. Seeing that there happened to be a coffee and dessert shop next to the shopping mall, Shi Shiren walked in. Tianlai Novel Network. The environment inside was acceptable. Mu Chiu motioned to Lu Qianqian to find a seat and sit down. I arrived at the bar counter with ease, and after searching around I found that the raw materials for making coffee had not expired. Mu Chiu nodded with satisfaction and began to prepare the ingredients. Lu Qianqian, on the other hand, put her chin in her hands and watched with curiosity as Mu Chiu's fingers moved flexibly on various instruments. His head moved back and forth with Mu Chiu's fingers, and the water in his eyes flashed with curiosity. "Would you still do this?" Mu Chiu shook her fingers slightly, and a flame burned at the bottom of the cup. "I know more than that." In a short while, 2 cups of hot coffee appeared in front of Lu Qianqian. Mu Chiu handed a cup of coffee to Lu Qianqian, and the latter's eyes immediately flashed with a strange light. After taking a sip of coffee, Mu Chiu looked at Lu Qianqian and asked, "How is the situation in the heterogeneous sect?" As a backbone of the heterogeneous sect, Lu Qianqian should also have a reaction to such a big incident at the Yuhei base. Lu Qianqian shook her head and sighed. Since Wufa died, the sect has directly cut off the followers on the Yuhei line, and now they have completely left us to fend for ourselves. Mu Chiu nodded without surprise. It seems that the Yuan sect is really decisive. Lu Qianqian looked up at Mu Chiu with a resentful look in her eyes. "So, I can only come to you now, please don't let me down." Her watery eyes seemed to be full of affection, and there was a beauty mole under the corner of her eyes, coupled with her charming appearance, like a delicate lily flower, which was so pitiful that I felt sorry for her. Just from the appearance, even if she didn't use her bewitching illusion, Lu Qianqian was enough to fascinate thousands of boys and girls. But Mu Chiu narrowed his eyes and smiled. "It depends on your performance." Lu Qianqian pouted, but didn't get angry. She is a smart woman who knows how to please people. Strangely enough, Lu Qianqian seemed to become a little woman in front of Mu Chiu. Without any tricks, her previous strong image was gone. Just as the two were talking and laughing, there was a loud noise outside the door of the mall. Someone opened the door of the mall from outside. Mu Chiu took a sip of coffee and said, "I didn't expect there would be customers at this time."